Welcome to The Grow Show, powered by STIHL. On The Grow Show, we share ideas, tips, tactics, and insights to help you grow your landscaping business based on our team's 40 years of experience running a landscaping company and working with other owners to do the same. This week, we have a special episode recorded live from the STIHL booth at the 2024 Equip Expo. Enjoy this replay from the panel discussion led by Marty Grunder on battery-powered equipment.
It's exciting to see you here again at day 2 on Equip Expo. I'm Roger Phelps. I'm the Corporate Communications Manager for STIHL Incorporated. And I have to say, it's exciting. It's an exciting day for STIHL. For those of you who were here yesterday, you saw just how many new products we're launching, both gas and battery. We know that we just celebrated our 50th anniversary of manufacturing in the United States. And we actually had Dr. STIHL, the family, come over to visit with us. And you hear directly from the family, no pressure. I mean, when the guy whose name is on the side of the building and your paycheck shows up, not that we didn't do any extra cleaning or anything, did we, folks? No. But it was really exciting to hear from him again to reaffirm that our focus will always be and continues to be on our customer. So whatever you need, whether it is gas or battery, we're here to manufacture the tools for your business. However, we also know that regulatory pressures being what they are, demands in your local area, whether it's environmental, noise, regulations, whatever it is, increasingly we know that folks have to consider whether to add battery to their overall business operations. And that's what we want to address here today. We're very excited to have Marty Grunder of the Grow Group and the CEO of Grunder Landscaping is here to lead this panel of experts. And I'll stop talking and let the experts start talking. So with that, Marty, I'd like to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Roger. Thank you, Roger. Welcome, everybody. Excited to be here at Equip, huh? It's, as the owner of a landscaping company, it's exciting to go around here and see the enthusiasm that everyone has for the industry. And I would say, judging by the attendance here and the smiles and the energy, our green industry is alive and well. And speaking of being alive and well, battery-operated equipment is something that if you haven't considered it in your business, you certainly should. We gradually are implementing more and more of it into Grunder Landscaping Company. And these gentlemen are here today to talk about it. We have Brian Fullerton, Dan Mabe, and Paul Bowski. And I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves a little bit to you, and then we're going to have a really good discussion for about 40 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up for questions. That sound good? Thumbs up? All right, here we go. Brian Fullerton.
Hey, well, good morning, everybody. Brian Fullerton here, hailing all the way from the beautiful state of Michigan. Go Blue. But really quick here, just wanted to say welcome out, everybody. Hope you guys are enjoying the show and obviously enjoying the STIHL booth. We have a company up there in Metro Detroit, Michigan. We've got 4 full-time guys, a couple part-time kids that work for us, a growing business, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of ebbs, a lot of flows. We're in the thick of it, Marty. You have a great business. We're learning from folks like you every single day. But it's really cool to be here with all of you guys today, the STIHL family. It's going to be a really fun conversation today, so I'm looking forward to it. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Brian. Glad you're here. Dan?
Yeah, Marty, second year in a row doing this with you. Pleasure. Thanks for everything you do for the industry. Thank you, STIHL USA, and everybody who's participating. I see people, company 4 Seasons, drove down from Illinois to come and attend this, and some other things. I'm Dan Mabe. I'm the founder and president of the American Green Zone Alliance, otherwise known as AGZA. I started in this industry about 8.5 years old. I worked with the man of the house, spending my weekends and my summers doing this line of work with gas tools. I had a gas business as a young man, and then I converted to electric way back in 2004 in what we call the pre-lithium era. I wish I had the tools that existed that are on the market today, but AGZA, we are a mechanism to help transition from gas to electric with 2 pillars, economic and workload feasibility. So we've collected a lot of data for nearly 15 years, and I look forward to sharing some case study examples with you today.
Dan is a tremendous asset to this effort here today, so I'm glad to have him. And then we brought somebody right from the home where they make all this wonderful equipment. Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Marty. My name's Paul Bowski. I am the senior manager for the consumer portfolio at STIHL. I have a lot of experience with power tools as well, starting from a very young age. As the oldest son, my dad put me outside every weekend to take care of yard work. I've been in the industry now for 16 years, 14 of those here at STIHL Inc. So thank you for having me. Excited to have this talk.
Glad you're here. And if you're ever given the opportunity to tour the steel plant in Virginia, you should go do it, because I've been to probably 10 different manufacturing plants in the green industry. I have never seen one that is as clean and high and tight as your operation. It's amazing what they do. I still can't get over how they test the gasoline chainsaws. I know we're not talking about that today, but you probably know what I'm talking about. It's amazing. All right, first question we have for Dan is, and I think obviously all of you are sitting here, whether you have 1 crew or 40 crews, you're probably worried about the cost. Like, how does this make sense? Because one of the things I've learned as a business owner, a lot of your success is about ROI. Like, on the surface, it may look like a lot of money, but you do the math and you find out this is a no-brainer. So talk to us about the costs associated with this and share your wisdom on that, Dan.
Thank you, Marty. And I'm going to give an example of a specific case study on this for this question. First, we need to keep in mind, when you're replacing a gas tool, you're not just replacing it with a tool. You're replacing it with a system, which includes batteries and chargers and the tool. That's what's replacing your gas tool in a gas can. So you're going to have to understand your battery to gas tank ratios. And you're going to have to understand how many batteries are going to replace that tank of gas to get me through my workload. So I just wanted to start with that.
Yep.
So the upfront cost of electric is going to be more expensive. Now, we just completed a project with one of the largest school districts in the United States. Not at liberty to say yet because it's going to be formally announced in the spring, but just to give you an idea of the scale of this project. Nearly 2,000 gas tools were replaced. About 1,650 of them were replaced, coincidentally, with STIHL tools. It's not a STIHL commercial. They tested 4 different brands, and they make their decisions on their own. So with that being said, there were 4 things that we looked at providing this cost-benefit analysis and ROI trajectory prior to purchasing any tools for this project. And the 4 things that we looked at were the actual price of the tools, the batteries, the chargers, then the necessary charging infrastructure upgrades. When you're talking about charging over 3,000 batteries, we really had to look at the charging infrastructure. You need to look at that as well. You might have to hire a licensed electrician to come and help you. You need to determine how much total power is coming into your building or your property, and then whatever is left over, how to distribute that power to charge your new electric fleet. You're going to want to understand you might have to upgrade your breaker box, add new breakers, a sub panel. You may even have to bear the cost of upgrading wiring and outlets. Not always, but these are the costs to consider. Another cost is temperature control. This particular project, in the summertime, the temperatures range from 104 to 112 degrees. We had to factor in purchasing some air conditioners and some circulation and some modifications for circulation in the areas that the batteries were being charged. And then finally, in this area, we had to consider theft protection. The batteries are very expensive. Once you invest in them, you need to protect your investment. In this location, several locations with this project, there have been issues of equipment and batteries being stolen off vehicles and actually in the charging facilities. And then finally, I really want to encourage you to consult your insurance agent to understand if there are any modifications to insurance policies covering your electric fleet versus your gas fleet. And then I will end with this project with all of the stats. If you were to purchase all of these tools full price, you would achieve an ROI based on the frequency of use with these nearly 2,000 tools and batteries, 2.5 to 3 years. And that is quite impressive. And then if considering that this was in an area where there was an air district who was able to bring down the cost of the tools and steel fleet stacked on top of each other, we estimate that this institution will have an ROI in just under 1 year.
So let me just, that's a huge example. I know for us, we just started with 2 crews, and we didn't get it. I mean, we locked them in the trailer. We got that set up. We had to run some outlets out to where the trailer's parked. But I don't think you would advocate somebody that has 9 crews going to all battery right from the start. You can just start with 1, right?
Absolutely.
And you still have to worry about some of that. But I don't think I'd get into the air conditioning and some of the other things if I was starting out slow, right?
Marty, that's a great point. And I referenced that particular project just to understand what it would actually take and the ROI, but I agree with you wholeheartedly 100%. If you're a contractor, you're going to want to dip your toe in the water, convert, make an E-crew, convert a trailer or 2, and then, do it at the lowest cost possible so you can keep your margins as profitable as can be.
Yeah, no problem. Paul, financing, it makes me think of that.
Yep.
Like, are there any options that STIHL has? What can contractors, maybe we got a crew, guys are out here, guys and gals are saying, okay, I got 10 crews, I want to try 3 of them.
Yep.
What can STIHL do to help them financially get that done?
Sure thing. STIHL has a financing program where we offer as low as 0% APR for 60 months. And you can package that with handheld power tools as well. So what that allows is our users to dip their toes in and be able to do it at a reasonable rate.
Right.
That STIHL is supporting you in this transition.
Fantastic. And that's an easy thing. You may want to talk. And obviously when we're done, this place is crawling with STIHL reps. Anyone that has on a STIHL or they've got some cool shackets they're wearing, that's the person to ask. And they're all well versed in this. Brian, you're the practitioner up here. You're the guy that's using the equipment. Brian has a very robust social media channel, does a great job. Talk to us a little bit about the operational benefits that you've found with switching to battery-operated equipment.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. First off, super appreciate all the credentialed information there. That was a lot to take in, but all the merits that you're sharing with us are where the future is going. And I have always been a big advocate that you have to be willing to embrace change, right? So I think before we talk about the X's and O's, I think how many folks here, if we could just do a little hand up, how many of us were using air socket, air guns, and impact guns just 5 or 10 years ago? I see a lot of hands going up. How many of us today have switched to battery-operated impacts?
Yeah.
A lot of hands going up. And that's a small analogy, but now start looking at our tools, to our lawnmowers, to our hand tools. So I think the first thing we have to do is at least have an open mind, right? I think John Maxwell said once, your mind's like a parachute. It only works when it's open.
Yep.
So before we just say, oh, I've heard the battery conversation, I want to say, have you actually ran the numbers? Have you actually taken some of this information that's being presented from STIHL and some of the other great brands that are out there and actually ran the numbers and done the math for yourself? Once we get that out of the way, well, then it's like you said, let's talk about implementation. I will tell you guys candidly, we should have my employees up here because they're the ones using all the equipment day to day. And I asked them, what's your thoughts? What's your feedback? And overwhelmingly, they continue to go to the battery product. And I'm not just saying that. We're talking about no fumes or messy gas smell in the trailers, no spilled fuel. I don't know if you guys can relate on this one. Anybody ever have an employee, God bless them, put the wrong fuel in a handheld piece of equipment? Yep, and then you're out $400 for a trimmer or an edger.
Right.
I think we've all been there. I don't think you can really mess up putting the wrong battery pack in for the most part. I mean, it's pretty straightforward there. So you have to start looking at all these micro efficiencies and micro improvements. And then you can get your holistic approach with, do I want to make an investment into 1 crew, 2 crews? If you like that and you have a proof of concept, then let's implement it into the rest of the fleet. Yeah. But the simple analogy I have with that impact, it's like that with our hedge trimmers, our chainsaws, and of lately, the trimmers, the blowers. And it still continues to make improvements. I think it changes the conversation towards where we're trying to go.
Yeah, and basically, I just think it validates that, again, we may not want to go switch our whole fleet over there, but try it.
Sure.
Because I know the men and women on our crews, they prefer the battery.
That's right.
The only time they don't like the battery is in the fall with the heavy, wet leaves. And the power, we can talk more about that if time allows, the power in those machines is getting there. But I know for many instances, I mean, even myself, I tell people, every man in the world should have a STIHL battery-powered chainsaw in their garage.
Ready to go.
I live on a wooded lot, every other week there's something down. I don't have to worry if I'm out of mix. I go start the thing, it fires up, away we go.
That's right.
So there's that. That's my little quest there. Let's go back to ROI, Dan, on how that all works, switching to battery power, and maybe let's focus on the smaller contractor that wants to dip their toe in the water. You mentioned it a little bit on the ROI with the big thing. Take us through with your wisdom on a smaller transition, maybe.
So when we work with the smaller companies as well, Marty, thank you for that. We ask them, so how much is your gas operations costing you? What is that monthly expenditure for gas, two-stroke oil? Are you using synthetic two-stroke oil or conventional? The price of gas, and then preventative maintenance, repair maintenance. And a lot of times, to our surprise, they really don't understand their expenses as a company. So in the exercise that we do with them, we're going to factor in the cost of gas. Whether you're using two-stroke oil, synthetic, or conventional. We're going to do an inventory of your gas operations. You should do it yourself. Understand based on your working season, understand what that costs you each month. And then when you compare the cost of gas and two-stroke oil versus price per kilowatt hour to charge those batteries, then you're going to have a good baseline of where that is. And in our experience, electric is 1/4 the operating cost. Right. And I'm talking a more general average nationally, 1/4 the cost. And then from there, you can back out the math on year 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, depending on the length of your working season, when you're going to get to your ROI. And then the best thing is, once you do, if you've chosen a good quality platform, a platform, for example, there's tools from STIHL that we know to be 10 years old and still working. Right. We have tools that are 7, 8 years old. So if you get into that gravy period with your ROI, you get to that ROI, you go into the gravy period, Marty, then you're going to have a little bit more profitability on your maintenance operations.
Now, you said can they go to your website, find these calculations, they can hire you to do this? Tell us a little bit about that. How if somebody wants to get some help, because even myself, I'm fairly smart, but my gosh, if I had somebody that was going to validate my numbers and talk it through with me, talk to us to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You can go on our website. There's some good general information there, the information I'm sharing here. But if you want to do a deep dive, yes, you can hire AGSA to help you. Independent of all manufacturers, and everybody will independently, based on 15 years of doing this, customize an ROI trajectory and a cost-benefit analysis for electric operations.
And you know, this year I'm celebrating my 40th year in business. In my 5th year of business, I didn't know to do that. Like, I would look and say, well, I can't go and spend all that money and switch equipment. That doesn't make any sense, because I'm looking at one big number. But the more successful you are, and the more you're around other successful people, the math doesn't lie. And you tend to look at things a little more carefully that on the surface may not make sense, but over time will. And so I think that's great to go out onto the website. You know, as I'm sitting here, Brian, I'm thinking, okay, now wait a second. I'm not going to switch everything over. Marty just said that the gas blowers, I'm still going to need that for heavy wet leaves in New York or wherever I am. How do you mix the two fleets? Like, you're doing that, and you've got a lot in your network and your community doing that. Give us some best practices or what your opinion is on that.
Well, first things first, I love what you just said about growing a business to the larger levels, including revenue, and then actually looking at your business holistically and having very intelligent folks, your bookkeeper, your payroll, your CPA, the folks on your team, teaching you how to run a real business. Listen, as my company continues to grow, I feel like you're taking a page right out from my book of how we're looking to grow right now. I am in the thick of it as we're looking to grow and scale. I'm looking at numbers and all this data more than I ever have. As you guys can imagine, if you are an owner-operator business or maybe a smaller company, how many of us can relate to, like, the urgency is what gets taken care of? And so if you have a gas trimmer that goes down, your FS91R or something like that, what's your first thought? Well, I got to get the trimming, taken care of, or run into the local steel dealer, buying another trimmer and getting that guy taken care of. And it's always hand to mouth, foot to mouth kind of a situation. But as you continue to grow a larger company, and you have a couple crews out there, you start having a lot of payroll, you're looking for these costs and your benefits and trying to be profitable. As I'm in the thick of this right now, I have to stop and I can't keep dealing with the urgent situation. I have to say, let's take a holistic approach. And if I say, well, we keep having these breakdowns or these challenges with the fleet or certain pieces of equipment, is there a way we can reevaluate this whole conversation? And that's why I keep taking it back to the top. If we just keep dealing with the day-to-day and doing it as we always done, well, there's new technology. There's great performance with the battery product lineup. Why would we not evaluate it? Right. So whether you put your big toe in and you're just switching out a chainsaw from gas to battery or electric, that might be the way you kind of jump in. I'm kind of put the big toe in. My wife, though, she's more of a cannonball style, right? She's just going to jump into the pool. I'm like, it could be cold. She goes, I don't care. I'm getting on in that thing. So if you're just, want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and, do the whole deal and buy the whole fleet, rock and roll. But for me personally, I've just been seeing the improvements of performance over this last 5 or 10 years with battery. And for a lot of folks that are out there that just have that stigma or maybe that mental block like I even did for a long time, I just want to give you guys my honest opinion. Like, go check it out. Go demo. I mean, obviously, we're here preaching to the choir at Equip Expo. But after this, go outside to the STIHL Expo booth, the outdoor booth, and like Paul said, go run those chainsaws, go run those trimmers, go run those blowers, and then you can go back and do the math and see if it makes sense for you. So I think it kind of akins back to 5 or 10 years ago when EVs were coming out of the market, and a lot of people are like, I don't know about that. And then today, you got some of the leading competitors and brands out there making some really great products. And I think they're eating a lot of the traditional automakers' lunches, practically speaking. And now it's got everybody thinking about that for EVs. Well, it's the same conversation we're having here. And by the way, what an exciting time to be alive. I mean, when's the last time you saw a revolution or an evolution in the industry, quite like battery, robotics, and everything we're talking about today? So whether you jump in cannonball style or just put your big toe in, I'm sure there's a product and a program for you.
On your crews, I'm just curious, do you have like a gas blower and then accoutrement of some of the other things? What's your makeup?
Yeah, right. Well, ironically enough, we've been able to use a lot of the FSA line. So the guys always gravitate to the trimmers, the chainsaws, the hedge trimmers.
Exactly.
We got our tried and true BR800s, the side starts. We do a lot of residential lawns, so having the ability to cut the blower off and then just do the 2 pulls and get that thing back on. We do use a lot of gas blowers still, admittedly. We do get some big leaves, nothing like they do in the New England states. They got some crazy leaves out that way. I'm sure a lot of you guys from Boston and whatnot, you guys can relate. So that's kind of where we're at right now with our implementation.
Okay. Paul, let's go over to you, because you have a lot of experience with this, being on the forefront of the equipment needs of contractors. Yep. What are some ways you've seen, or what are some products maybe you would, I have some thoughts, I'm going to see what you say,
sure.
Excuse me, of transitioning. Like, what could they try, or how could they get started with this?
Yep. As we've talked about, starting small is a great way to test out these products, as well as when being at a great trade show like Equip, going out and actually putting those pieces of equipment in your hands. The STIHL outdoor booth actually has the gas equivalent and the battery equivalent, so you can run them side by side and be able to understand how that performance is there, how we're giving power without compromise. But don't take my word for it. Get out there and try it. Where I would start, if we're going small, is hedge trimmers.
Yes, exactly.
Great place to start.
I agree. That's what I was going to say.
Because from an energy management sort of view, they use very, very little energy. You can get a lot of runtime out of it, and it solves a lot of user problems. It gets the fumes out of your operators' faces. If they're not being used often, they can run into a little engine issue here and there, or they can flood it, whatever it might be. Versus click and go. Makes uptime much, much higher when hedge trimming. So that's where I would start.
Okay.
Second tool would be a pole pruner.
Okay.
Something that's not used that often, and again, gets emissions out of your people's face, relatively efficient, and all of this is easily charged overnight.
And they use the same batteries. I was going to say the hedge trimmer as well.
Yep.
My days of being out on a crew all day pruning hedges with gas shears are over.
Yeah.
But I remember getting hot and sweaty and having the gas and then rubbing your face and then having it in your eyes and going home and your wife would say, what have you been doing all day? And it just gets to the point where it's just not comfortable and you have an alternative. The other thing I found is that in my opinion, the battery operated hedge trimmers work better than the gas trimmers. They come right up to full speed, I guess you call it torque, immediately. And the cuts that they make, and they're lighter, they just seem to be a lot more ergonomically friendly, I find. I don't find they have the vibration. You know, the steel gas ones are wonderful. We have a whole ton of them. But the battery operated ones I found to be, that's what I have at my house. I still have a couple of boxwood hedges that I like to do. And those things, they're a pleasure to run. They really are.
May I jump in for that conversation? The chainsaws, forgive me, I know the SKUs have changed a little bit and new models continue to come out. But now when a tree falls or something happens or a customer's asking us to clean up a tree, before, you know, you start the chainsaw 25 times, pick your brand, and now my guys are like, a tree fell. We get excited. So now we're like, let's go get the battery chainsaw from STIHL, throw in the battery. It's good to go. It's ready to go. There's no 25 times. Nothing's flooded out. You don't use that but a couple times a year. So you're not dealing with things gumming up or whatever it might be. So now the conversation goes to let's go versus, oh gosh, who wants to break their arm off?
For sure. Dan, one of the things we worry about, I know, I hate to say this in front of everybody, but in the last 5 years, we've had 2 significant injuries with gas shears. I don't know what it is. You know, you go in your trim and you forget, you stick your hand down, you nick your finger. The hedge trimmers, the chainsaws, those would be an issue. What other training, both in using the equipment efficiently and in safety, what are things you can share with us on the battery that you found there? Because I know that there are some safety issues with the batteries as well that you got to watch out for. So enlighten us on that perspective.
Yeah, thank you for that, Marty. AGSA is proud to say in this year, in 2024, we have trained nearly 900 frontline workers and managers nationwide. The first thing we do before I get into safety is we want to get people excited about battery. And we want to bring more prestige and notoriety for the folks who use the tools every day, beautifying our communities, and really sometimes only are communicated with when there's an issue going on. So we really want to uplift the workforce of this industry, and we're doing it with this training and helping them understand that they're going to have to make some concessions.
Right.
And we're honest. So you have to have that honest conversation first. Do not promise anything that isn't true, and set the expectations clearly. As far as the safety goes, we're going to recommend that everybody read the operating manuals. And my colleague, Catherine, in there, she'll know what I'm talking about there. But yes, you're going to start by reading the operating manuals. It's procedural. With battery, you're going to just really want to make sure that you're setting up the chargers in a well-ventilated area, in temperature-controlled. On all of the tools, what's great about the electric equipment, on the hedge trimmers, for example, and the chainsaws, there's redundancies in the triggers, if you will. You're going to have to press 2 triggers to get that thing to go. So there is some redundancies, and then we recommend anytime you're going to do any work on any battery tool, take the battery completely out of the tool, and then even press the trigger to make sure there's no leftover charge in the board. So those are some of the things that we teach on that side. And then again, operationally speaking, you know, with the blowers, I'm going to just give that example because it's been mentioned. Everyone's mentioning the pole saws, the hedge trimmers. Unequivocally, we can say gas, electric, apples for apples in performance. Blowers, yes, they still have some catching up to do, although performance-wise, they have closed the gap in a year since I've sat here with you, Marty. But the thing you have to realize, though, if you're in an area where you have fall workload, that seasonal fall workload, you're going to have to consider being a hybrid company and still using gas to be profitable, or you're going to have to consider buying more batteries and delaying your return on investment for that specific workload, to be honest.
No, that's good stuff and all that. The optimizing the battery charging, that would be a concern for me if I was thinking there, Paul. What do companies, I mean, what's a setup? What can companies do? What are some strategies that STIHL can share with us on the battery optimization?
Yeah, what I can share with you is that from all the market feedback we have and all the time that we spend out there with our end users, that the majority of people charge overnight because they like to see their batteries at the end of the day, make sure that they made it back from all of their job sites. And in addition to that, it's very efficient to be able to set up your charging for overnight. So, as an example, STIHL has the Pro Power Hub that can charge up to 30 batteries overnight on 120 15 amp circuit. So that provides a lot of options. Now, you mentioned that you're charging in the trailers. Certainly a possibility to be able to set up some sort of shore power for overnight and have our mobile chargers in that trailer to unlock that if you don't want the inefficiencies of carrying it from the trailer into the shop. So a couple options there, but the majority that we have seen is overnight charging.
Okay, setting all those up.
Yep.
That's right.
Okay, Brian, the battery equipment, I know in certain states it's probably, I don't know what it's like in Michigan. I can't say that we've had people call, we've never had anybody call in and say, I want someone to use battery operated equipment. We do have a medical facility that doesn't like the noise. We have a high school that doesn't like the noise. And because of using the battery operated equipment in those two instances, we're allowed to go there where it fit better in our route than drive and clear across town to do one because we couldn't. What other strategies are you hearing your customers request it? What are you seeing out there, not only in your company, but in your community that you have with other landscapers? What are you seeing with that?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the conversation. We obviously want to deliver the best product for our customers. At the end of the day, we're in business. We're in business to make money.
Exactly.
And the best way to do that is obviously to deliver a quality product to our customer. So whether you're in the commercial, strip malls that you guys are taking care of, maybe you're in a retirement community, or you guys are just doing residential subdivision lawns like we have a lot back at home, the noise pollution, or whatever you guys might quantify that is, it's a real issue, it's a real conversation, and I only really started to even appreciate that conversation more as I became a homeowner and somebody that had my own land in the last couple of years. My neighbors, of course, now are grabbing their blowers out, and funny enough, I can even tell you which blower it is based on how the noise sounds. I'm sure you guys can all relate. I'm like, oh, they're using a such and such, but I'm like, you know what? Can you shut that thing off? That's freaking loud and annoying. Now, imagine this. You're doing your local, some of you guys have a lot of commercial clients. You're doing your local Outback. Maybe getting there at noon or 4 or 5 p.m. and dinner's starting to kick up, and you're ripping through with a bunch of loud noise backpack blowers blowing off the front steps going into the Outback Steakhouse. And it's not like necessarily a bad image or a bad vibe, but as you roll through, we've all been there with this, the yellow vest on, going through and cleaning up all the blowing from the clippings. That customer's walking in and going, yeah, I like Outback and I like the food or wherever they go, but they're like, man, that company, what's their name again? They're loud, they're annoying. And it's like, you didn't even do it on purpose, you're just trying to do your freaking job. But we all know, if you guys have ever demoed a leaf blower that's a battery powered from any of the brands out there, you go through, you got this kind of wispy, quieter noise, you just kind of go through, you have the different power levels, generally speaking, on a lot of the great products. You can set it at the lowest setting, you just have to blow off some dust and some grass, nothing crazy, and you go through, and the entire conversation was like, oh yeah, no problem, and you can literally even say, Marty, to the customer walking in, hey, good morning, or hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And you can hear each other versus having something rumbling on your back that sounds like a motorbike, going through the countryside. So I think from that standpoint, not only in the subdivisions, again, something I've come to appreciate, and if anybody out there, anybody have kids or little ones back at home, what's the one thing you don't do to the baby? You don't wake the baby. And so, as I've had kids over the last couple of years, I'm a little bit more cognizant, Marty, of the conversation, as I'm now going in, maybe doing a residential cut or a leaf cleanup, both spring and fall. using the leaf blower, the gas-powered one traditionally in the beds, roaring through the gentleman who's on a Zoom call working from home, or God forbid, the little baby that's in the nursery right next door that is trying to sleep, and mom's peeking through the window going, I don't care how good of a job they do, get that guy off my property. Or you get the text message, hey, could you guys come between 2 and 4 when the baby's not sleeping, right? So it's a funny little thing, but when you start looking at all the little data points and you start adding all this conversation together and you look at a holistic approach, you go, you know what? There's a lot of merit here, and all these little pain points that would be traditionally there are eliminated with a lot of the battery product.
I think this would be, look, at the end of the day, I think you said the most important point. We're in business.
That's right.
This has got to make sense from a monetary perspective. It's also good, I think, to be a landscaper that's innovative and at looking at trends.
Yes.
And I do think there's value in your social media posts is talking about your efficient use of battery equipment, the noise, the other things. I do think there are people that would feel good about having. Do you ever market what you're doing there at all? Does that ever come into marketing or branding opportunities?
1000%, Marty. Not only to answer your first question earlier, there's legislation that's getting passed, whether we like it or not. So we have to change, right? And if you're saying, well, I'm not going to change, well, ironically enough, you're going to have to change because everything around you is changing. So by not changing, you're actually changing, right? So whether you like it or not. So that's why I keep saying have an open mind. But I'll tell you what. If you have company A that's using loud, obnoxious, gas-powered equipment, and that's fine. I'm a big, gas enthusiast myself. But if you got company number 1 that the shirts aren't tucked in, they're using loud gas blowers and trimmers and edgers, they're screaming through, and then you got somebody that looks like a little bit more smart, a little bit more of a tech company. They have a beautiful logo, their shirts are on, and they're using battery-powered equipment. If you're a customer, a consumer, if you're a 45-year-old dual-income homeowner that's working from home, looking outside and watching a company cut their lawn, I think the writing's on the wall. Which company are you going to go for? Company A or Company B? And there's just, not only is that your opportunity, but the way you market and present yourself can get extra mileage out of that conversation. And so, to be honest with you, not only was that what we're doing, we're trying to differentiate and position ourselves different in the marketplace, but if I don't, my peers and my competition will, and that's what I have to be cognizant about all the time.
So Dan, just your comments on this same question. Like, you're in California. I know there's stricter environmental and just more bureaucracy from what I see in California with doing things. What are you seeing on the marketing and branding, or does the fact that a company has battery-operated equipment, have you seen examples of that helping them gain market share?
Absolutely, and well said, by the way, Brian. I started again back in 2004 with electric tools that were kind of like for kids, if you will. But I found a niche market for this. I was able to charge 35 to 40% more to these clients, and they did want it. I built this route up to 70 properties, 70 clients, and I thought I was going to sell this business and do something else, but it didn't work out that way. It was too early, so AGSA formed off of that. But yes, once you are able to get on the property, there's other things you can do that lend to increasing your profit margins in terms of enhancements. You're doing mulching. You're asking the client, do they want native varieties planted? Do they want turf removed? Do they want water-wise irrigation? Do they want vegetable boxes? So these are all the things that can tie in with a low-noise operation. And one thing on the noise I did want to follow up on, Marty. I speak from personal experience. I have tinnitus. And this is a result of using gas tools for a greater part of my life, and I didn't put protection in. I was young and just thought I was impervious. And now in my older age, in my 50s, that noise is always there 24/7. I'm going to live with it for the rest of my life. So when you operate gas tools, they operate at low frequencies and they travel long distances. Electric tools operate at higher frequencies, and once you distance from those electric tools, the noise pressure drops off significantly and it doesn't penetrate barriers as much. So on the noise reduction, there's something actually physiological to it, and I encourage everybody to think about your health in the future.
Well, and I guess as I'm thinking here, let's say you have 10 crews. Maybe you have 2 crews you set up this way to try, and when you get out to go to call on, say you call on a nursing home, and you say, hey, listen, the other thing I want to let you know is we're only going to use battery-operated equipment here. It's a lot quieter, and our clients, I've got one in my truck. Would you imagine these humming outside your place? I mean, there might just be something that showed you took a little more interest. And, Dale Carnegie said a long time ago, and I continue to share this, take an interest in others and they'll take an interest in you. So you may not care about the gas blower. You're 20 years old, your hearing's fine, but you get to 56, and there are things that, I don't have that, praise God, but there are things that can happen. I think there's some showmanship involved here where you could stand out in a sea of sameness with a little bit better solution. Paul, anything there that you've come across in the factory as far as marketing and branding, or any of that would help us draw a close to this part of the discussion?
For sure. When we take a look, let's just take an example. We have the new BRA 600, which is comparable to that BR 700 amount of power, right? 35 newtons, really able to lift those leaves. When we think about how much quieter it is than that BR 700, it is about 20 decibels less.
Okay.
Which is that sounds small.
50% less?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's about half because of the logarithmic function of sound pressure, right? So it's a big difference. It makes an enormous effect for your customers when you're using that product.
So I think, Roger, if we have some questions, and then what I'd like to do when we're done, be thinking about the biggest takeaway you'd like to give everybody on their way. Do we have any questions from anyone out in the audience? Right here. Thank you.
Brian spoke about his team being excited about using those electrical equipment. Do you have any pushback, or were they reluctant initially, and how did you deal with that?
Can you hear that? So the question is, did he switch some crews over? Did they have pushback? Did the men and women on the crew say, I don't want this stuff? Or what was is that it? Okay.
100%, tell you honest as I can. My guys are requesting to try this stuff because they're watching on social media just like you guys are. So when they see the new stuff coming out from STIHL, Echo, all the other great brands that are out there, what do you think they're saying? We want to try that. Yeah. Why don't you get that? And because we do some social media stuff, they're saying, well, can you get us a demo? Sure, let's get a demo. Ironically enough, they try it, they like it, and now I as a business owner go, crap, I didn't see that coming. Now I got to figure out the numbers. It's the most ironic conversation, right? I will tell you, there's a lot of intrinsics here, and we could probably literally make a list of 100 different things. The noise pressure, the logarithmic, whatever he said, I'm sure that's a real thing. But I'll tell you what, a lot of the times the battery-powered equipment will sit a little closer to you. There's more torque at the nozzle, so you're not getting that flex. You're not having all the noise by your brain and your head all day. So you actually are less fatigued. So when I'm thinking, hey, Monday, everybody's got fresh legs. Thursday, Friday, all right, guys, let's Pizza Friday, let's rally. We don't have that same conversation. Now, they're still going to get pizzas. Okay, let's talk about that. They're still going to have pizzas on Friday, Marty. But at the end of the day, or at the end of the week, they're not as tired or exhausted because that battery power, instant torque, multiple different settings, it might weigh a little bit less because we don't have to carry a big gas can around with us on top of that gas-powered backpack blower, right? So I'm getting a lot of conversation from my guys asking to adopt. I hate to say it, I want to be a leader. I want to be out front, but it's challenging me to become a better business owner and a better leader for my team as they continue to request this stuff. So hopefully that makes some sense.
Yeah, and I can add on to that. Our team loves doing the demos.
For sure.
And when you think about trying to empower your team, and how many of you are having trouble finding and keeping people? Yeah. Right? So we want to have a culture that somebody feels valued. So I think saying, hey, would you like to try this? And if they like it, you figure out a way to make it work. Well, I mean, your people are smart. You know, owners that are in here, listening to my team is the greatest thing I've ever done. Because I didn't have it all figured out.
Well, I just got to add one more thing. A lot of the younger folks that are starting to work for us, guys and girls, right? They're not growing up the same way maybe some of us did. They know how to work apps and pull triggers, but do they know how to necessarily, I hate to say it, choke a gas-powered blower and how to start that thing and pre-mix fuel? The world's changing. You got to recognize this stuff. So again, you can be a traditionalist, die hard, all that stuff. And that's fine, but I'm just telling you, the company that's innovating, they're on the front, cutting edge, and they're going to try to adopt this stuff. right? Like, imagine that resume when somebody's coming on in and they're hiring and they say, well, why should I come work for you? And you're giving them the song and dance. And you say, well, look at our fleet, new trucks, new equipment, state-of-the-art apps, tracking, punch in, punch out. The equipment we're using is all state-of-the-art, battery, electric. They're going to go, this is a forward-looking company, not only for today's employment, but to build a career with you, right? I'm not just trying to impress my team to work here for summer. I want these guys to be here 5, 10, 20 years. Does that make sense? So when they see that the leaders bought in, what do you think that does to the company culture?
Yeah, I think there's a lot good there. Great question. Thank you.
Great question.
Other question. I like having Roger run around. This is great.
What is STIHL seeing as far as pushback from dealers that have used gas and repaired gas for 50 years to train and downtime for electric equipment? The knowledge it takes to test a circuit rather than replace a spark plug.
Yeah. So as part of our standard STIHL training, we do electrical diagnosis. And one of the ways that we get past that is our amazing sales force that goes out there, works with all of you dealers, helps to train this, and also puts those units in your hands so you can know them just as well as we do.
Other questions? Thank you.
So I don't actually have questions, more of a comment to support what Brian was saying. I run a fully operated battery company in Charlotte, and I will tell you, everybody, all of our employees are previously gas users, and I had the comment the other day, they prefer nothing other than battery.
Is that right? That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you didn't hear that, he runs an all battery operated equipment in Charlotte, and his team were converted and they love the battery stuff. They're all in on it. Thank you.
I have a question about going forward. Let's suggest that 5,000 companies in the next 2 years make the switch to electric. How nationally, how are we going to supply the demand for the added electricity? Has STIHL thought about that?
Everybody hear the question? Yep. He wants to know if there's this massive shift, how are we going to supply the electric? I'm out on that one. I don't know.
Okay,
so
I'll give an example. Again, when we help convert under our certification a school district that has over 900 campuses and is responsible for charging nearly 4,000 batteries, we looked at that. Their existing infrastructure, and it's mostly 120, supports what we were able to do. So I think the electric car industry, the big buses, and larger things might have some challenges. But I think with the handheld stuff, I just don't think there's going to be a huge issue based on our previous experience doing projects for nearly 10 years. I know you said 5,000 all at once. I guess we'll have to cross that bridge when we get there, but the average amount of electricity we have found coming into the panel to the property, there's enough headway to support a fairly large amount of battery charging. And then also, you're going to speak to STIHL about their new charging products where they're able to basically control the charging and spread it out more. And make it easier to plug into one circuit, for example, and then spread that out through a product which will either do sequential charging or hopscotch charging, if you will. So I really do feel that the tech that Brian was mentioning, I think that the industry is going to keep up with it, and that's just my opinion today.
I would say this, and I think it's a completely valid question because I think it's something the industry is dealing with. We all serve, Marty and I have served on it. I know Paul's involved in it. National Association of Landscape Professionals, Professional Ground Management Society, all of those agencies that represent you as the contractors are reminding all of the municipalities and all of these agencies that are putting these regulations down that while we definitely support it, we also support a reasonable introduction. So we have already seen some of the problems that will happen when there's just this blanket ban and all of a sudden everyone realizes the infrastructure is not there. So I think getting involved with associations like the NALP, like the PGMS, who have lobbyists, who have the arms to remind these municipalities that, yes, we want to do this, but all right, let's calculate on a broader idea of how much power will we need to our community. Now, I agree, right now, because of the adoption rate and the slowness of it, it's not an issue. Could it become one? Maybe. But that's why we need to get involved. And I think the industry and everybody here has the opportunity to use their voice through associations like that to make it known that's a concern. You want us to do it? Great. Let's just make sure the power's there, right?
Any other questions? Right up here in the front, Roger.
So that's actually a really good point. Is there any discussions, concerns about disposal of batteries once they're...
So the question is concerns over disposal of the battery.
Sure. So I can take this from a STIHL perspective. So STIHL, every time we make a battery, prepays to have all of our batteries recycled right from the get-go. So when it's purchased, it's already paid to be recycled because sustainability of battery for us is a large part of what we think through. And part of that is creating a quality product that has that rugged durability to last a long life and then the ability to recycle it. So the program that we're a part of is called Call to Recycle. Their website can give you full details on that, but it's as simple as using a Call to Recycle locator to find a location to drop it off at, or calling in. So,
go ahead.
Okay, and really quick, Chris, way back when there was no economy for recycling lithium when I was doing it, so the strategy was stockpiling. Now there's an economy to recycle lithium. And then AGSA ourselves have done 2 projects where we have repurposed cylindrical lithium cells, made new batteries out of them, and then created a second life. So repurposing, if you can first, and then of course responsible recycling. But I can tell you overall, there is now an economy to retrieve and recycle lithium batteries.
Marty, I think we got time for one more question. I mean, this has been awesome, and I know there's lots of interest here. For the sake of time, we're going to need to wrap up. So you get to say the final word, sir.
We're out of Baltimore, Maryland, and they just passed a ban on gas blowers last week. So we're in the process of converting over, but can you talk about any experience you've had with working with local governments to get subsidies, to get incentives? Have you had any luck doing that? And if there's feedback on that.
So the question is incentives or grants or anything to switch over.
Yeah, we work with several air districts in California, California Air Resources Board. We actually nationally, we meet with legislators and we present the true cost of conversion. And we present the X's and O's of what it actually takes. And we're brought into situations where they have enacted bans, and it's an asymmetrical load on companies like yourself. So we just present what it actually takes to replace a gas leaf blower. And then we consider if they're doing year-round seasonal bans in the Northeast or is where fall, the workload in the fall is just really crazy. We just present that, and then we try as hard as we can for them to pair said legislation or ban with a funding mechanism that's fair and symmetrical to the industry.
You know, Dan, you've been working with the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which I think is one of those, and I think Maryland and maybe a couple others have air quality management districts. Maybe if we could direct people where they can find out more, because again, California tends to lead the way anyway.
Are you in Montgomery County, Tim? Okay, yeah. Well, we can have a conversation because we work with Montgomery County to help them with their leaf blower program. So if you're doing stuff there, let's have a conversation afterwards.
But I think that's the opportunity. California, with the Air Quality Management District, found a way using government, a combination of government and private funding to help that transition. And I think if we, as an industry, could say, okay, you've done that ban, why don't you step up the way these guys did? So anyway, how about some last words, Marty, and then you can take us home.
Roger, thank you. Let's start with Paul. Paul, some last words, maybe something you didn't mention, tie a bow on it.
Sure. Thank you, Marty, and thank you everybody for being here. Let's start with that. It's an amazing crowd. Really happy to have you here in the STIHL booth. I just want to focus back to trying those products out. I mean, the feeling of that performance in your hands, the feeling of durability that creates that reliable sensation for you can really help ease that transition as you're moving over and ensuring that you're starting smart and small to have confidence.
And you're going to be here in the booth, right?
I'm going to be here all day.
He's like 7'3", so you can find him. Dan, good of the order?
Okay, so I really encourage you to try before you buy. I know STIHL and other manufacturers are trying to afford you that opportunity. That way you can really understand what it actually does and then worker adoption. If you can get those two things, then you're going to be off to the races. And then I just really want to also make sure that I was clear on this. The reason why I have the condition that I do is because I irresponsibly did not protect my ears as the operating manual told me to do when I was using gas tools. So I wasn't disparaging gas tools as themselves. I was actually saying, look, I did not do what I was supposed to do as an operator, therefore I have this condition. We're going to recommend that you wear hearing protection even with electric.
Thank you. And then people can get a hold of you, Google your name, or go to American Green Zone Alliance, right?
AGSA.net.
AGSA.net. Brian, bring it home, brother.
I won't take long. I'll just say, number one, thanks for letting me share with you guys as well. I know the panel and us, we all super appreciate your guys' time and the conversation. I've heard a lot of try before you buy. One of my lines I heard somebody say, test before you invest. So, don't just take our word for it. Go check out the equipment. Go demo it for yourself. Not only here, but try to work with your local STIHL reps to try and put the equipment to work in your business. Try it for a week, try it for a month, whatever they're going to allow you to do. But then once you have the off season, Marty, you can start working on the business, not just in the business. Take the next 4 or 5 months and look at making an educated decision if the battery platforms are for you. And then you can run out the gate in the spring rush, go crush it like we're all going to do. But because we got a little bit of a slow season with winter for some of us, and let's pray it snows, Marty, amen?
Right, exactly.
But that being said, if you got time to work on the business, not just in the business, start running those numbers, see where the math makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'm a pragmatic. Don't do it, right? But at the same point, you might have to give a little bit to get a little bit here in this conversation, okay? So I love you guys. I appreciate you. If I can ever do anything to help you out, please let me know. But Marty, take it away, brother.
Thank you.
Back at you.
Let's hear it for Paul, Dan, and Brian.
Thank you.
All right, we will be back here at 2 o'clock, Roger. I want to also give you a little commercial for the Grow Show powered by STIHL. That is my podcast that comes out every Wednesday morning. The latest episode dropped yesterday. We're grateful for STIHL's support there. And I'm going to be around here if there's anything that I can help you with. By all means, come and ask. And Roger, any final words?
No, I just want to thank you again. Please give it up for our panelists for taking the time to share with us today. Thank you, gentlemen. Really appreciate it. Very insightful. As Paul pointed out, please spend time. Take advantage of these individuals. Take advantage of our STIHL people. If you would like to sign up for a demo, we have QR codes where you can do that. Please just let our folks know. We'd love to have our field staff across the country come by and visit you if you need training, operation safety training, or a demo of battery equipment. But bottom line is, as you can see, we're making the tools that you need. Gas, battery, hand tools, PPE, whatever you need. We're here for you, so please take advantage of your time with us. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Grow Show. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and head to growgroupinc.com for more information and resources to grow your landscaping business. A special thanks to the folks at STIHL, whose support makes this podcast possible and whose reliable handheld power equipment makes our jobs easier daily. We'll talk to you next week.